Welcome everyone to Stock Talk. We're really glad you could join us for this special deep dive. If you want the real scoop on market movers, well, you're definitely in the right place. And hey, before we get started, do yourself a solid, hit that subscribe button. Seriously, you don't want to miss what's coming up. Okay, let's get into it today. We're digging into the Q2 2025 portfolio from Scion Asset Management. That's Michael Burry's fund, of course. And this isn't just any filing, it's the 13F, the one that shows what the big players bought and sold. And with Burry, well, he's the guy from The Big Short, famously sharp. This filing, it shows something pretty remarkable. So our mission today is to figure out not just what he bought, but what this huge strategy reversal actually means. What's his market outlook now?
Yeah, what's really fascinating, I think, is just the scale of this change. The magnitude of the pivot. For anyone watching the markets closely, this isn't just like a list of stocks. It could be a real signal. I mean, this is an investor with a history of making these huge contrarian calls that turned out to be right. So the question is, what's he signaling this time with such a dramatic shift?
Exactly. Which brings us right to the big surprise, doesn't it? Michael Burry, the guy who called the housing crash. He was so publicly bearish just recently. He's just pulled off one of the biggest U-turns we've seen from him in ages. Q1, his portfolio was just loaded with PUT options, betting heavily against tech, against Chinese stocks now.
Gone. That whole bearish stance completely vanished. It's total wipeout of his previous positions. And if you look at the bigger picture, this is probably the most significant quarterly strategy change he's made in, well, quite a while. And let's put some numbers on it. His portfolio value almost tripled.
Tripled. Wow.
Yeah, from about $199 million in Q1 up to nearly $580 million in Q2. And the key detail, all those Q1 PUTs completely eliminated. So it really makes you wonder, right, what changed for him? Did those bearish bets just pay off massively, giving him a ton of cash to reinvest? Or has he fundamentally changed his mind about the market?
Yeah, a totally different outlook.
The filing doesn't spell out the why, obviously, but the actions. They speak volumes. It's a huge shift in conviction.
It really is more than just a head-scratcher. It kind of resets what we thought his view was. So, okay, massive change, way more capital involved. Where did he put it? Our sources show one sector really dominates now, healthcare. His biggest new positions are UnitedHealth Group, UNH, and Regeneron Pharmaceuticals, REGN. And these are huge trail options. Together, they're like over 36% of the entire portfolio. That's not just tweaking things. That's a whole new direction compared to last quarter when he barely touched healthcare. What do you make of that?
Well, that aggressive move into healthcare, especially using call options, it suggests he sees major upside potential. And it's interesting. It's kind of a mix, right? UnitedHealth is the biggest U.S. health insurer that feels defensive, stable, and essential service, maybe positioning for volatility.
Okay.
But then Regeneron, that's a big biotech player, Eylea, COVID treatments, that's more about innovation, long-term growth.
Yeah.
So maybe he thinks healthcare will hold up better if the economy slows down, or maybe he just sees specific companies like these as undervalued growth stories.
Right, combining defense and growth potential.
Exactly. It's a pretty nuanced play, essential services plus that high growth element.
Okay, that makes sense. But if you thought that was a surprise, get this. Michael Burry, who was, famously down on tech, shorting names like NVIDIA just last quarter, he's back in tech. And in a big way, significant call positions in Meta platforms, Meta and ASML holding. ASML. How? How do we square that with his previous stance?
Yeah, the Meta one is really interesting. $73.8 million position.
Yeah.
Especially given how critical he's been of social media valuations before.
Right. So his bullish turn now, maybe he thinks Meta's huge AI spending, their efficiency drive, maybe the core ad business strength. Maybe it's all being undervalued now. Could be a classic contrarian buy, thinking the negative narrative has gone too far.
Okay, seeing value where others don't. What about ASML?
ASML, that's about a $20 million position. And it's a really strategic semiconductor play, isn't it? He's not betting on the chip makers themselves like NVIDIA or AMD.
Right.
He's betting on ASML, the Dutch company that makes the essential lithography machines needed to make advanced chips.
Ah, the picks and shovels kind of play.
Precisely. It's a bet on the fundamental infrastructure of the whole digital economy. It suggests he's confident in the long-term demand for advanced chips, no matter which chip maker is winning in the short term. It's a very specific, nuanced tech bet. That is a fascinating distinction.
Yeah.
Really selective. Okay, so it's not just tech and healthcare. He's also making some clear bets on the consumer, particularly luxury goods, it seems. Look at Lulu, a massive bet there, a huge $95 million Sal option plus $11.8 million in common stock. I mean, that screams high conviction in premium athleisure. And he's also back in VF Corp, VF, with $17.6 million in call options. What's the story there with consumer spending?
Well, putting those two together suggests maybe a dual view on the consumer. The Lululemon position is so big, it just screams optimism about that premium segment holding up,
Yeah.
continued spending power there, sustainable momentum.
Okay.
But VS Corp, that feels more like a value play, doesn't it?
Yeah.
They own Vans, the North Face, Timberland, big brands, but the company's had its struggles.
Yeah, they have.
So Burry might be seeing a turnaround opportunity there.
Yeah.
Maybe thinking the brands are undervalued, poised for a comeback. Could be operational fixes or just a general pickup in spending.
So not just betting on the consumer broadly, but specific angles.
Right. Playing both a high-conviction growth story with LULU and a potential value recovery with VF. It's interesting.
And then, maybe the most dramatic reversal of all, apart from the overall veritable flip, his view on Chinese tech. He had PUTs against them. He was really skeptical. Now, a complete 180 from PT options to call options on JD.com, JD, and Alibaba, BO. He totally reversed course, bought more shares, and switched to bullish calls. How do we even interpret that? It's audacious.
It is certainly bold, especially with all the geopolitical stuff and economic questions around China still. But it signals pretty strong, renewed confidence in Chinese e-commerce and tech, doesn't it? It suggests he thinks the worst is over. Maybe the regulatory crackdowns that hit them so hard, the economic headwinds,
Yeah.
maybe he thinks that's all priced in now.
So he sees them as cheap.
Likely.
No.
Undervalued assets, ready for a significant bounce back. It's classic contrarianism, really. But this time he's contrarian bullish, where maybe a lot of people are still quite nervous. It implies he sees a path to recovery for China's economy and these big tech players that maybe the market isn't fully seeing yet.
Wow. Quite the shift in sentiment there. Okay, so it's not just what he bought, but how, right? Looking across the whole portfolio, what really jumps out, besides the specific names, is the options strategy. He's using call options really heavily across multiple sectors, not just buying stock. That's a very different approach than, say, a traditional value investor.
You're absolutely right. And using calls so aggressively, it really magnifies everything, both the potential upside and the downside risk. It tells you he's not just looking for slow, steady gains. He's betting on big, fairly quick moves upward in these stocks. Leverage.
High conviction, then.
Extremely high, directional conviction. Either he thinks the whole market is turning, like we discussed, or he sees very specific, maybe time-sensitive opportunities in these sectors. He seems to believe these companies are set for a significant re-rating, probably within the lifespan of those options. And, besides those huge call positions, he does have some other smaller, more diversified holdings, too.
Right, it's not all options.
For instance, he added more Estée Lauder common stock, about $12 million worth. So confidence in luxury cosmetics. He got back into Bruker Core, that's scientific instruments, about $10 million there, maybe a play on R&D spending. And he still has that smaller, like $8 million position in Mercado Libre, Latin American e-commerce. Maybe sees similar potential there as in China.
Interesting.
So yeah, while the big bets are concentrated, he's still casting a bit of a wider net for growth.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap Burry's Q2 2025 portfolio. It's a story of dramatic change, a complete flip from extreme bearishness to mostly bullish. Portfolio value nearly tripled, and heavy use of call options showing deep conviction. It's a lot to process, isn't it? Especially given his track record.
It really is. So thinking about our listeners, what does this all mean for you? Well, watching these kinds of big pivots from major investors like Burry can be really helpful, actually. It helps us spot shifting narratives in the market, potential opportunities, or maybe risks we hadn't considered. When someone like him makes such a sharp reversal, it usually signals a strong belief about something changing under the surface.
Right, it forces you to question assumptions.
Exactly. It encourages you to look beyond the daily headlines, maybe consider some contrarian ideas. Even if you'd never use his aggressive option strategy yourself, his moves can provide a really valuable perspective for your own thinking.
Absolutely well said. And whether this huge pivot turns out to be as insightful as his famous housing call, well, only time will tell, right? But the sheer size of these bets, the decisiveness, the conviction, it definitely makes you pay attention. It really leaves you wondering, is Michael Burry seeing something big on the horizon that the rest of the market is still missing? What stands out most to you about this dramatic shift? Something to think about.